Continuing our coverage now of the latest mass shooting, this one in Uvalde, Texas, at an elementary school. 19 children and 2 teachers were killed. This morning, there are still parents who don't know if their children are safe. Those parents are being swabbed for DNA to help identify some of the victims or identifying kids from the clothing that they sent them to school in that morning. I can't even imagine. It's an unfortunate fact. Parents in Colorado have too often had to have difficult conversations with their kids after school shootings. Now they find themselves having to approach the topic once again. How do you even start that conversation? So to help you broach that conversation, child psychologist Dr. Sheryl Ziegler is joining us this morning. Thank you for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
As a mama, both of us, I don't know how to even start this conversation. My kids are thankfully too young to have this conversation, but what's the first thing that parents should think about when they're about to head into this conversation with their kids?
I think the first thing you should think about is first your own feelings, right? And so, there's a lot of emotion around this, and it's okay to express emotion. I always like to tell parents it's okay, but just be aware going into it, what are your emotions? And then you want to really think about the age of your children. So the very young children, really, unless you think you're going to have they're going to have exposure, you don't necessarily have to say anything. But if kids are going to school, there's a good chance they're going to hear something, and you have a choice. You can be more ahead of it and, share what you know, what you think, and you get your message out, or somebody else will. And certainly, I will say, of course, this was a class of 4th graders, and that really touches home probably differently. For some people, they're so young, but talking to elementary school kids about safety, that's what they really need to know, right? We cannot make the 100% assurances, but of course we want to say these things are very rare. They get a lot of attention because they're so terrible, but it's very rare. This is why we practice safety. All of your teachers, everybody knows what to do if we're ever in harm's way. That's really what they need to know, is the safety piece. And of course the empathy piece, if they feel powerless and you want to do something, write a letter, make a picture, send it to Uvalde, Texas. It's helpful to do something with our grief and our fear. The older kids, I will say, the middle and high school kids, they're the ones that are just like, it is a scary time to be a student in a high school or in any school at this point. And they are very verbal about it. If we're talking about a middle or a high schooler, they have been through this many times. Yep. This isn't their first time. And they have a very different feeling. They have a feeling of, don't reassure me of all of this safety when it feels like every day is an unsafe day.
Right.
So that's really also a different conversation around what to do with all of those feelings.
Yeah, the age component is so big, because I think a lot of parents are like, I'm not going to talk about it until they come to me. And when you get into the older age groups, you can't do that, especially with social media. You want them to hear it from you and not on social media or friends or, gossip or gatherings like that. Yeah,
and I want to just underscore what you're saying, because I think sometimes parents don't realize that they get their news from TikTok, from Instagram. So even if they look like they're just scrolling and they're doing what they're usually doing, the information they're getting is different. I have a 14-year-old, and she told me what she was seeing, and yesterday she was on it, pretty much when it happened.
Right.
And so you really need to understand that they are getting their messages from there, and we don't know what those sources are. It's important to really filter the media, the amount of it, and the sources.
Absolutely. You kind of touched on this a little bit, but if a kid is coming to a parent and says, I'm scared, I have fear, what do you say to them?
I would empathize. I understand. Sometimes I'm scared too, right? We can't shield them from this. We've had grocery store incidences. This isn't just about schools. Schools feel so vulnerable, but this is about being in public at this point. And so I think there is a point in time where you empathize and say, I understand your fear. We still choose to live our days, and we still, of course, there's a mental health piece, and we still need to be aware of, the reports are coming out, usually comes out, this person was bullied, this person was this. And so you can take the conversation and make it a little higher in terms, again, of what can we do? Can we make sure we're inclusive? Can we make sure we're always kind? Can we make sure that we know what to do about bullying? There are multiple layers of this issue of mass shootings, of gun violence. But what we can do are things like, well, what gets it to the root, right? What gets to the root of this? This person is mentally ill. How did they get mentally ill? And just really making the conversation 360, making it really inclusive of the many issues that it taps into.
Unfortunately, we've had to bring you in so many times about this topic, but I'm thankful that you're here for us. I know so many parents are struggling with this conversation today, and even, kids who may be watching this might help them through it. So thank you for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
So again, today is hard. It's hard for everyone, for Coloradans, for Texans. If you want or need to talk to someone, please take advantage of this Colorado Crisis Services line. It's available 24/7. The number is on your screen. It's 844-493-8255. Give them a call. They would love to talk to you any time of day. And you can also text the word TALK to 38255.